So, a few years after Metroid was released and sold pretty well for Nintendo, Gunpei Yokoi and his team at Nintendo R&D 1 decided to make a sequel that showed us the next steps our favorite bounty hunter would take as a part of her never-ending quest to save the galaxy and slay the Metroid menace. Yokoi had recently had a huge success in his creation of the Game Boy and his helping developing several different games for the handheld. So he and Nintendo felt it was only right for him to bring his weird little squishy baby to his gray bricky baby and make them fun. Hold on, did I not mention Gunpei Yokoi at all in the last video? Wow, that's really unthoughtful of me. As he was the head honcho in charge of the whole creation of Metroid and Kid Icarus, which ironically came out the same day and even featured a very similar enemy called the Tomatoes? Sure, pal, whatever you say. Well, anyway, Gunpei Yokoi was a huge reason behind the creation of the Metroid series and a plethora of other Nintendo successes. And now that I've mentioned him, let's talk about the incestuous mutant of his two babies. Metroid II: Return of Samus. The most basic name I've ever heard for a sequel. But hey, at least it's not confusing like Zero Mission. Return of Samus was released in 1991 in America and 1992 everywhere else, including Japan, most likely due to the fact that Metroid was not as popular in the East as it was in the West. The game sold, quite well, with plenty of reviews being a tad confused by its more linear nature, but all in all agreeing that it was a fun next step for the franchise. Which, yeah, when compared to the original NES game, this one is quite the jump in quality. The visuals of Samus Returns are probably one of its more interesting aspects, as it was designed for the Game Boy, so the sprites from the original had to be updated to fit the smaller form factor, and the monochrome color scheme of the system. Leading to Samus getting a lot taller and a lot bulkier, which even led to the iconic shoulder pads of her Varia suit, as without them, the player would be unable to tell what suit Samus was wearing. Return of Samus was actually heralded as a bit of an evolution for 8-bit sprites at the time, as it was thought to be able to match those of the NES, which, yeah, I guess it does, but at the same time, I kinda feel like this was more of a marketing point. Though Return of Samus was made with the monochrome scheme in mind, that doesn't mean there wasn't plans for a version of it with color. At least within the dev team, and there were even some rumors of a special DX version mirroring what Nintendo did with Link's Awakening, but, that never happened, as most rumors go. Though there was actually a full-colored image of the game in an advert for the Game Boy Color, even taking place in an environment that was not seen in the final game. Possibly meaning that this is a look at the potentially colored version the devs were talking about, but the key word there is possibly. Though don't fret to my monochrome hating friends, as the game would get some cool color schemes if you attached it to a Game Boy Color or the Super Game Boy, allowing you to see the beautiful acid of SR388 in like an interesting blue color, puke color, cosmic brownie. Personally, I've been using a ROM hack that recolors the game, and I've really enjoyed playing it this way. Not to disrespect the monotone or the cosmic brownie look, I respect and love them, but I agree with those potentially real devs that the full color is just kind of how this game's meant to be played. It just looks really nice. And besides, consider this a bit of a stress test for you, the viewer. If you're not into me using a fan-made project for a visual change, then there is a third of this video you're not gonna like. On that note, I could have sworn this ROM hack was called The World something, and I was even gonna make a type transition / joke, but I deleted the original file while cleaning out my PC, and now when I look it up online, it's under EJRTQ colorization, and the credits do match between the two, as the fan devs added theirs to the credits of the original. So this is the right patch, And, also, great job, by the way, guys. I really love your work on this project. I just could have sworn this was called... And even MGBA is kind of backing me up, so I don't know. This is just one of those weird things that happen when I make a video like this. Oh, the stories I could tell. This would be a great transition into talking plot, but no, we got some other stuff to knock out first. Speaking of knocking... No, that doesn't work. The gameplay is pretty much the same as the original Metroid, but this time it's only like 20% buggy. Like, sure, we still got some of that old-timey jank here and there, but Metroid II is quite the improvement, especially in the platforming department. Half the upgrades you get this time are pure traversal, and they are amazing. Like, the infinite space jump is so sick, I love it. That spider ball, though, way too inconsistent with which way's up or down or left, or if it even will move at all. Seriously, I don't know what this thing's problem is. But all these new traversal upgrades really make me wonder why this game is more linear than the one before it. I mean, sure, the last one left much to be desired in helping the player get around, and in that regard, this game is a lot better. I just think it's really funny how that all worked out. The more linear structure in this game doesn't really bother me as much as it will in other linear Metroids. I just usually prefer the usual open structure, not saying I'd ever turn down a Metroid, because, I mean, these are all really good. I just usually prefer the open stuff, but to be honest with you, the whole linear structure really works for Metroid II, so I understand why they went with it. And besides, this was on a handheld during a period of time where they were considered more stop and play for a few minutes, instead of the usual plopping your ass in front of a TV and wasting the day away getting cheap shotted in doorways. I will never live that down. But I can live down the beam situation as we get my favorite beam power-up in the plasma beam, aka the fuck you laser. Though don't get too attached, as there's some other FU beams in Metroid that we'll see later on that are just as, if not nicer than this one. Oh, I can't wait. Oh, and hey, look at that! The way this game is structured actually allows us to want to use the other beam options instead of just sticking to one. That's crazy! Whoa! Who would have thought of doing that? We got a save system, thank Bird God, and we even get a neat little counter for our genocide we're conducting. Look, it even switches between total targets and the ones in certain areas. Don't worry, I'll explain that later. Though this game does have a few shortcomings. One is Samus's increased height, which means she takes up a lot more of the screen, leaving things a bit cramped, but nothing all that bad. Really, you'll get used to it, so don't fret about it. But man, trying to get your resources back are a nightmare. Certain enemies only drop health or ammo, and it can take way too long to try and stock yourself back up again. It's miserable at points, and that's what the new missile and hell stations are for, though they aren't as plentiful as I'd like. The enemies in general are way more difficult. Fair, I'll add, but more difficult. Which, is not a bad thing at all, except for the fact that they can be hard to see due to Samus's new sprite size and the resources being a huge pain to farm. But honestly, those are just annoyances. I don't think Return to Samus is all that hard of a game. Though man, it can really get you if you don't know what you're doing. Use Morph Ball bombs for the armadillo, you'll thank me later. The music is really good. I really enjoyed the more heroic themes for Samus in this game, which heavily contrasts the genocide she's going on, though I guess it is for the good of the galaxy. Hopefully, I think I like this soundtrack even better than the originals, and I already love the different tunes it had. They're iconic, but man, the surface theme that you get when you first start the game is perfect. It encapsulates Samus's confidence as she goes into another alien world, blasting the shit at a hostile wildlife. It's so upbeat and adventurous. I low-key think this is one of the better themes in the series. I don't know what it is about the Game Boy, but man, its music is super good for some reason. I know that kind of sounds, dickish, but like, come on, don't tell me you look at this thing and expect crazy good music from it. How many iconic themes have come from this brick? Pokemon and Kirby alone have made the chiptune style legendary. And do I even have to explain Tetris? It's fucking Tetris, man. Like, that's a copywritten song. They just fucking stole it, put it into that's badass, I respect it. I'm glad that Metroid's music and sound effects sound so crisp, so chunky. I'm not a music guy, I don't really understand how it's made, to be honest. I'm more of a visual guy. I'm a mixed media designer by trade. Stuff that satiates the eyes, I can do. The ears, Also, sorry if my voice is different for this video. It may be a little bit... I'm trying something new, okay? If it doesn't work, let me know in the comments. But anyway, I think that's why I have such a deep respect for all types of music. Game Boy-ass chiptune absolutely included. Is chiptune the right word for this? Oh my god, let's just move on. Our story Wait, should I do a spoiler warning? I mean, the story is more like OG in the manual type thing like the original, but I usually do spoiler warnings. Fuck it, it's fine. Our story begins with the Galactic Federation, taking into account all of the recent incidents involving the Metroids, and have decided to call up a group of soldiers and researchers to mount an operation/extermination of the creature on its homeworld, SR-388. After some time without contact from the first team, the Federation sent one team after another to try and handle the threat, but to no avail. So they decided to do what they should have just done in the first place and called up Samus Aran to handle the extermination, due to her many experiences fighting the parasite. Which, yeah dude, come on, you probably could have saved a lot of lives and a lot of time if you just done that from the start. I know it's kind of embarrassing for our government to keep relying on a bounty hunter to solve all their problems, but come on, you're just gonna call her anyway, just do it off jump. Oh, yeah, you in the back.
If this is only the second game, how did Samus have multiple encounters with the Metroids? We only know of the one.
Well, that, my extremely nasally friend, is correct. And this has to do with a little thing called a retcon. Spoilers for those not in the know, but Metroids as a species are practically extinct by the end of the original trilogy. But when they wanted to have games after that, they needed a reason for the Metroids to be around. Which is why Metroid II is the second game released, but timeline-wise, it's actually like 4th, maybe 5th in placement. Depending on which games you do or don't want to count. So I'm adding a bit of retroactive plot elements into the story here, cause we'll have to go over them later in the video anyway. Samus lands on the planet and starts her extermination. Her sensors pick up around 40 Metroids on the planet, which, sounds low, because it is, but, fuck it, easy money she thinks as she heads into the planet. As she reaches her first Metroid, she witnesses it acting strange before it morphs into a new form, an Alpha Metroid. You see, Metroids as we know them are actually only the larval stage. They have a whole life cycle of fucked up monsters to go through. Though ironically, with each stage they get a little bit less, expensive to take down, as now they can be killed by just pumping them full of missiles, as long as you're hitting the squishy parts. After Alphas, we got Gamma Metroids, which gain electrical powers, Zeta Metroids, which are more aggressive and gain fire and acid powers, and are strangely familiar looking. Then the Omega Metroids, who are these crazy, tough to beat kaijus that are only weak from a missile straight to the front or extra weak if you hit it from the back. But again, they look strangely familiar. As Samus defeats these beasts, the acid level of the planet that she's on, which was halting her progression, starts to change with each group she wipes out. Not really sure why that happens, but it's probably got to do with the multiple Chozo ruins Samus discovers, leading her to the realization that this was actually the bird people's homeworld. She even finds a Chozo weapon factory that's full of hold on, did the Chozo make the Metroids? Anyway, there is one Metroid left and Samus is confident. Until the counter changes and goes back up from 1 to around 7. How did that happen? Well, as Samus heads deep into the Metroid's nest that's interestingly deprived of enemies, which is a cool storytelling detail as one would assume Metroids would devour anything that got this close to them. Speaking of, she discovers newly hatched larvae Metroid who are just as dangerous as last time, but they have the same weakness with the ice beam that you can luckily get nearby, so go ahead and freeze those jelly bitches. Samus then travels through the nest, coming upon a weird egg that she's not able to reach yet, so she just moves along and eventually makes it to the monstrous Metroid Queen, who has a cool design and can be really tough, but if you stun her and morph ball bomb her stomach, you can blow up her guts for extra pause. This is just Alien 2. What Alien 2? Where Ripley goes into the alien homeworld and faces different types of aliens, concluding with her fighting the Queen Alien? She even saves a child, just like with new- Spoilers! Dude, come on, we've not got to that part yet. After slaying the Queen, Samus happens upon the egg again, and that hatches into a baby Metroid, who for some reason imprints on Samus as its mother. You'd think Samus would go ahead and just put the thing down, but no, she decides to take it with her. Which, you know, spoilers, was a poor decision, but I can see why she'd do it. Not only is the little bastard cute, but, you know, maybe researching this thing could lead to breakthroughs in terms of medicine, and it is able to eat the rocks that Samus can't blast through. So yeah, might as well save it. Though I do think this goes deeper than that. Samus and the baby make it to Samus's ship and they blast off to the stars, giving us the mission complete message. Metroid 2's story is like the original. It's pretty bare, but it's probably the most important one in the franchise, with its many revelations on certain plot points and new ones that will be carried on to future titles. I think the original Metroid 2 is a great game. It can be a little bit jank, but in terms of Game Boy games, I think it's aged surprisingly well. I'd put this one high up on my list of Game Boy games. It's a good time. But, like the first game, the original may not be the best way to experience it, though it does have its own strengths. In 2017, after a few months of the Switch being out, Nintendo decided to make the big brain decision of the century, releasing the first real Metroid game in like 10 years on the 3DS. Oh, big brain, big thing, big idea. Why on earth would you do this? Better question, why on earth would you make and release a game like Federation Force, let people melt down over the fact that you refuse to do a new Metroid, all the while having like, what, 8 in the oven? Nintendo is always teetering on dog shit or dog great at any moment. It's sad and hilarious at the same time. Not to date this video, but this has just happened with Mario fans who were starved around the release of the movie, but now they have like 9 games coming out. Why make people wait so long? I forgot this movie came out this year. That's how long it's been. Metroid Samus Returns. Yeah, they cut the 2 and a word out of the title, which will probably make this a bit confusing to talk about. So from now on, the original is Metroid 2 and the remake is Samus Returns. Samus Returns is a remake of the original Metroid 2 developed by Mercury Steam and was released in 2017. The development of this game actually started when Mercury Steam approached Nintendo, wanting to do a remake of another Metroid game with fusion. But you know, second verse same as the first.
女性器
Why?
ねえ、私が抽象の束を言ったら、それは面白くないですか?
Fine, but we're gonna be putting plot elements from later titles and hints to other Metroids in development.
もし私がこのウェブサイトでやったら、きっと伝わらないです。
Story-wise, we get a few additions, such as a recap of the happenings of the original Metroid and some more of the Federation's thought process behind the extermination of the Metroids. along with some cool Chozo architecture and machinery just showing us more of their culture, including how the whole acid system works, alongside some cool memories you can view showing more of their research and culture. Wait, what the fuck is that? And we even get to see them meeting another group of Chozo for the first time. Ow! Fuck! I had headphones in, asshole. The visuals are really nice. Sure, we kind of had to deal with the whole 3DS blur, but if you got Citra on your PC, you can absolutely HD that bitch up, though your bottom screen will suffer for it, so be careful. I like all the new color schemes and architecture added to the game. It's all so detailed and colorful. And Samus looks phenomenal. This is probably my favorite incarnation of the gravity suit. It just looks so pristine. But don't overlook those backdrops. There are so many incredible details in there. And they even include Easter eggs and hints to upcoming boss fights. That's so cool. If we're being, completely honest, I've always had a bit of a... How do I say this? I've always been skeptical of the newer 3D look for modern 2D Metroid. I don't know, just something about it's just never felt the same to me. But that was until I started playing this game and Dread, which have both proved to me otherwise. These games are gorgeous. I love how they look. And I understand that to do what they wanted to do with the atmosphere and the style, they had to be in 3D, and you know what? Good on Mercury Steam. This is their franchise now. Well, not franchise, the 2D stuff's their thing now, so just let them do their own style. Oh, and the enemies this time around, they look all strange and grotesque. You'll sadly be seeing them a little too much due to the limited enemy variety, but hey, they are cool looking, and if you're living on a planet filled to the, well, not brim, there's only like 40, but a planet with a bunch of Metroids, you're gonna look fucked up, so I like them. And it also fits with how hostile these assholes are. Samus literally has to swat them away. This new move is actually a new one to Samus's arsenal, called the Bitch Slap, the Counter, which she can use to stun enemies when they try to make unsolicited moves on her. Ow, bitch. Long plasma run, please! The counter as a technique, is interesting. I like its use in boss battles, but on the usual room-to-room adventure, it just kind of slows down the gameplay a lot, which... that's like the last thing I want in Metroid. Samus can also now aim her cannon in all directions with free aim, which also slows down Samus a bit since you have to stop to do it. But it's not as big a deal as the counter. I'm glad we finally got this in a game after 20 something years? Though I don't like the beam switching being on the touchscreen. I get why it's this way. You're trying to make the beams more utility rather than a straight upgrade, but I don't know, this really turns my fingers into pretzels sometimes. But hey, we got a working spider ball, so hell yeah. The new Aeon abilities are cool, I like them. They mostly serve to replace the scan visor or shine spark, but the shield and rapid fire were really fun to use in boss fights, especially with how dangerous the new versions of the Metroids are in this game. They're all really fun fights, and they even get these in-between mutant forms to really mix things up. I just wish they didn't mix things up by running away, cowards! That shit got old fast. Here we are having a dope as hell fight, and now I have to run after you through 3 different rooms? I can see your balls, bro. I know you ain't lost them. Those kaiju fights with the final 2 forms and the queen were so just perfect, especially when you get to nuke her insides this time around. Pause. Rewind that shit. What the fuck is that? The Diggernaut, a brand new boss fight death rays piece of shit that repays you freeing him with his unyielding furious promise to wreck your shit. It is one hell of a boss fight. I loved it. Didn't care for the chase sequence, but the fight fucked. I like the moment the Metroid counter shoots back up and Samus has a panic attack. Like, yeah, who wouldn't right now? And I also like how she's just going to blast the baby Metroid out of the air off jump because, yeah, kind of would go against the job if you left it alive. But then she hesitates, and we go into a first-person view for the only time in the game, where we watch Samus just stare at it for a minute, before sparing the creature. Why? I don't think we've ever got an official answer for this, but I think it's because on some level, Samus feels sorry for it. This helpless, harmless child is just trying to befriend the dangerous creature that just wiped out its own family. Come on, that's gotta remind you of someone. I genuinely think that Samus spares the baby Metroid because in this moment, she sees her child's self in its, well, not eyes, but in its protoplasm. Ridley did the exact same shit to her, effectively scarring Samus for decades to come. I think in this moment she realizes that, and takes pity on the creature. Then, like the Chozo before her, takes responsibility to find a new home for this child, so it may grow big and strong and maybe even save the galaxy one day. Again, probably not the official reason, but I don't know, man, I like it. Then, like in the original, Samus and the baby head up to the surface of the planet, on their merry way to start the next mission in saving the galaxy.
Yarg! Did somebody say Ridley?
Oh, god damn it.
You really thought you could have a game without me in it? Yarg, I'm your rival, sis. I'm the worst nightmare made manifest. I'm the purple space pterodactyl of
Yeah, how do you like that, you sentient dildo? Huh. I don't think I've ever seen this happen from the outside before. It's terrifying. Fuck him up, Junior, you're making your mommy proud! Yep, everybody's favorite Pyrodactyl is here to steal the show and the baby. Putting him here actually, makes a lot of sense, as I totally buy that he would come running to SR388 once he got word of what Samus is doing, which I'd assume would be pretty huge news in the galaxy, and it works really well with what happens in the beginning of the next game. Oh, and I love that he's technically meta Ridley here, since this game does take place after Prime that put him in that form after Samus blew him up in the original. Though now I'm wondering what new Ridley fight we'll get in a Super remake. I don't know, guess we gotta get one of those first. We'll discuss that next time. For now, let's talk about the fight itself. God damn, this is the best Ridley fight in the whole series. It's an awesome 2v1 with Samus and the baby bleeding the bastard dry, and having a cool sky battle in the air. The music is popping, the action is hitting, the baby is sucking. Pause! I love this fight, it's amazing. Well, after Ridley's supposed death, Samus and Junior fly off, ending the mission. After the credits, we see Ridley's cybernetic parts minus the pterodactyl, meaning he's finally done healing back to his natural self for Super Metroid. Though, seriously, how does that healing factor work? We then end on a normal, everyday enemy just hopping around before getting massacred by a strange blob and some rubble, with a mutated version popping out, signaling things to come. Samus Returns is an amazing remake with its updated combat and the exploration actually giving me a reason to backtrack to other areas like a real Metroidvania, though the areas aren't as interconnected as I would have liked, but that's what the new teleporters do, so yeah, I'm fine with it. Nice looking visuals, the music and sound effects are awesome. There ain't nothing wrong with the original, but if you're planning on playing this game, just go ahead and do it on the 3DS. Or, Citra. It's not like Nintendo's making any money off this anymore. So, how about that elephant? At the same time during Mercury Steam's production of a Metroid II remake, a dedicated group of fans were making another Metroid II remake. Literally, AM2R, Another Metroid II Remake. Apparently there's a whole fucking flock of these somewhere. So, the story behind this starts with someone named Milton Gosti, also known under their pseudonym Dr. M64. Gosti was apparently playing some Metroid II, and while playing, he found himself wondering what the game would look like with Fusion's tighter controls and Super Metroid's more foreboding atmosphere. Gosti wasn't really a game maker at the time, but with a lot of trial and error, he was able to make his little daydream come true, with the first demo being released in 2011, and the full game releasing sometime in 2016. Yeah, this was like a 10-year project for Gosti, who was more than happy to spend his time creating the game, which the Metroid fan base after 20 years of nothing were even happier to play. But the happiest of them all was Nintendo when they struck that shit down immediately after release. Like, this was a 10-year project and you wait till the finish line? Some serious hater shit at this company, I swear. And nobody was happy about this when it happened, because again, this was all there was at the time. Federation Force is a game I'm sure is really good, but Nintendo really be hurting themselves sometimes for like no reason. But hey, don't feel bad for Gosti, as he went on to be a level designer for the Ori series, which is really cool, and is now reportedly working on his new game in Unity. Oh, fuck. But anyway, AM2R is basically what if Nintendo did a zero mission style remake instead of a reimagining like Return of Samus. The controls are super tight and responsive. Seriously, I love how this game feels. May genuinely be my favorite control scheme in the series. The morph ball is on a trigger that I can press at any time just to transform into it, and that's just so fucking cool. It fucks my muscle memory really bad whenever I go play other Metroids, but oh my god, this is my favorite feature added to any Metroid. I need this in an official title. Oh, and the spider ball works, so hell yeah! I don't know what's up with the Game Boy, but everyone else can do it. The game doesn't feature Ridley or a Diggernaut parallel, but it does come equipped with its own new bosses, including some that make a lot of sense canon-wise for being here. And some are just these new, cool, crazy add-ons like a wild war machine, or a flying Chizodia statue, and a fucking Megazord that you have to beat while running away from a nuclear explosion. God, that was awesome to read. Though, that Samus fight was kind of annoying, and the Queen fight, I don't know, it's good, but the Queen fight probably could have been a bit shorter. It's like fucking 4 phases. It should have been a little bit shorter. This game's got a randomizer mode, tons of cool visual options, including a Game Boy and Virtual Boy mode, which is fucking, ow, it hurts, but I love it. And even some cute extras, like including an early baby Metroid, which helps with 100% runs, because these games expect you to find the baby, then backtrack across the whole planet, which is stupid. We got some cool new mini games and puzzles that I really liked. And we got a few new story elements, including these cool logs that detail all the information you could ever want to know about SR388. Plus, we even got a final message created by the Chozo alongside this game's version of a Super Metroid tie-in, which is, you know, cool. AM2R is an amazing game. A lot of fans claim that this one is the best one, and like, I don't think that's true, but damn is it good. I love AM2R. This shit right here was like a gallon of spring water that quenched the drought the fan base was facing at the time. And you can tell that this whole game was made with a passionate fan behind it. All the cool throwbacks, fucking inspired set pieces. We even get to see the Federation troops try to fight a Metroid. Well, you know, they lose, but man, that's cool. The Metroids in this game were alright. I like the ones in Samus Returns a lot better, but you know, these are good. The Omega kinda sucks though. I spent most of the fight just hanging back, waiting for an opening. It's that Mecha Ridley weak point shit again. I don't like when the weak point's awkward to aim at, because it feels like artificial difficulty. Like, this should be the easy part. Finding the time to actually shoot should be the hard part. I don't know. Though the atmosphere in the abandoned weapons factory was so crazy, you can tell that this is where the Chozo did all that fuck shit. AM2R is a gorgeous game with a stellar soundtrack and tight, wonderful controls and gameplay it's all wonderful. And in this version, you get all your health and missiles back at the save station instead of having to hunt that shit down every breath. That is so convenient, but I know it's coming. How does this compare to Samus Returns? Well, my friends, this is hardly even fair. I mean, really, that's what everyone says. One was created as a modern reimagining of a Game Boy original, and the other was trying to be a modern recreation of it. Or at least what the game was trying to do. One was made by a passionate fan over the course of a decade, the other was under $1 billion company in like half that time. One does this, one does that, one is an official thing, one is a fan thing, which is something people will hate it for on principle. If you ask me, who cares? Can't we just be happy to have 3 versions of a cool game? Yes? No? Fuck it. I know some won't be satisfied with that, so I guess I choose AM2R. It's those controls, man. I swear, they're so responsive and they feel perfect. And the trigger ball, oh god. It's the best for that mechanic alone. But there are some things about Samus Returns that are much better in my opinion. I love AM2R's new bosses, but the Diggernaut and Ridley are top tier, bro. It's hard to compare. Though AM2R did have the best armadillo fight. Yeah, I do know his name, but I don't know, fuck that guy, honestly. The moment when the Metroid count goes up and Samus is freaking out is way better in Samus Returns. And as many problems that I have with the counter, it goes on to be fantastic in Dread, so I have to give it to Returns for introducing it. But then again, AM2R had all those fun minigames and puzzles. They both got a fusion mode that's kind of locked off for either bad players or broke players, so, be careful of that. But yeah, gun to my head, I like AM2R the best. Though all 3 are great games that I believe are worth your time. Also, don't hit me with that it's a fan game, so it's inferior bullshit. If a game is good, it's good to me. Doesn't matter where it came from or whatever, a good game is a good game. If the devil himself made a new Fire F-Zero, I'd totally play that. Are you kidding me?
As a 99
Metroid 2, in whatever form, is a great time, and I highly recommend it.